the acts. Oh,
Sorry, you're good. Keep going.
pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, the acts relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed into law on June 16th, 2021. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. So, kicking things right off, going into calling the meeting to order. The first thing is update on CPA accounts and investment strategy. Unfortunately, we tried to get Brian to come tonight. He was unable to attend. So we're going to try to make him or a request, sorry, not make him, request that he come at the next meeting to go over that in more detail as a follow-up from when we met with the investment guy before. So no real update on that one. Then any questions? So the next is discussion of recreation. So the tennis and pickleball courts. I had gotten a request from Tim asking if we might consider adjusting the tennis court to just be pickleball, or one of the courts. I think the newly one, or the one that's being completely redone and doesn't have the posts in it. So I wanted to, I think, Freddie, you reached out to see if you could attend, and I think you couldn't attend. And Jen, you were going to talk to it. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
So,
Yeah. So when we were, I think it was like 2 meetings ago when we were talking about it. I think you kind of caught me off guard with the questions around it as well, because I had understood it as that we would have tennis and pickleball there, meaning like tennis on one side and pickleball on the other. And I think that's where like we went back through our documentation, and like I think the way we wrote it, like I completely get how it could be interpreted either way. But the other thing is over the last like month or two with all the people, like a lot more traffic on the courts and pickleball picking up over at our Richardson courts. Users have been asking us about when the Fin one will be online, where they can play there. And there was an opportunity that actually I think the vendor brought to us where we could actually install the actual posts for the pickleball's nets instead of having them have to drag across like temporary ones and then have lining for both on it. And looking for something maybe a little bit more permanent at the Fin location. So that's where the ask is. It's kind of like, I think there's a little bit of semantics in the way the warrant article was written. And I think that I personally interpret it differently than maybe some others on the commission did. And looking to see, when we look at that, do we have a problem with the old skateboard half of it was going to be turned into just pickleball lined with permanent posts. And then the existing tennis court would be brought back with tennis. We would not double line that side with pickleball to confuse the striping. So there would be 4 pickleball. I believe you can fit 4 on one tennis court down there. And then 1 full-size tennis court.
So otherwise, when you do pickleball on a tennis court that has the nets, how many pickleball courts can you get?
So I believe we still have, so at Richardson, I believe it's still lined for 4, but you just have to drag in the short nets for pickleball, right?
Okay.
Yep.
Let's see. So let me just pull up the warrant article.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you guys can talk amongst yourselves as I pull up the warrant article.
May I ask 2 questions?
Yeah.
So in the new proposed way of doing this, is there a cost difference?
Yes,
Okay, so I'm curious about
Yep.
that. And my other question is, So the Richardson courts are those, and I apologize, I haven't seen them in person. Are those the type that have like the not permanent nets that you have to move every time? Okay.
Yep. Richardson Richardson, basically we just painted on the pickleball lines, and then there's some temporary nets you can drag across. So I was just looking to see if I could find Tim's email. For the courts at Mooney Field there behind Finn, to add permanent posts back there would cost more than the initial quote. The initial quote was with like the drag across nets. So it would consume the contingency that was on it. And then I think we were estimating about $2 to $3 grand over. And that was what actually Recreation Commission discussed and said, like, if the CPC is willing to let this change to permanent, that Recreation would fund that through their revolving fund to cover the cost above and beyond what was in the warrant article.
So my initial reaction is I'm supportive of it. I think that it's a lot more convenient for the players. And to your point, pickleball is just skyrocketing in popularity. And I think that, I think the future of the sport is that there's going to be more permanent facilities that are, built specifically for it. So I would be in favor of doing that investment now rather than, having to, have this conversation again in a couple of years when it just keeps on, rising in popularity.
I guess I would just offer an observation. I drive down Lyman Street in Westboro quite often and across the front of Lake Chauncey. They recently redid their tennis courts there as tennis courts. And then last year, completely redid the lines as pickleball courts. Every time I drive by, it's not just full of people playing, but there are people lined up. And I went by this morning at 7:15 in the morning. There were people lined up waiting to play. It's unbelievable.
Yes.
So I'm supportive of this. It's going to get used. It sounds like a good idea.
So Jen, can I just share my screen?
Oh, yes, I didn't put that setting yet. Okay, you can.
So, where my concern comes in, can you guys see my screen?
Nope.
Why not? Oh, sure. There we go. You see it now?
Yep.
Yes.
So as long as the way I view it is, as long as someone can't come back and say, hey, I voted on, this thinking one thing and something else got, we did a bait and switch. I'm fine with it. Where I get stuck is that it says the project's resurface 2 courts located at the field. In addition to resurfacing the courts, the project will include the installation of new lines for both tennis and pickleball. And then down here, it says the courts in the summary have deteriorated. In addition to resurfacing, the courts will be painted to allow pickleball to be played as well as tennis. So, I don't know. I recall from the, I know the original cost for the second court that was a skateboard, it was going to be additional cost to put in the tennis post. So that was where it was presented that there was going to be tennis on what used to be the skateboard park. So that's my only conundrum with this. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, I understand that. I guess this is where in hindsight, we probably should be asking for just some sort of schematic when people present kind of things like this to us, because I think, to play devil's advocate, there will still be pickleball and there will still be tennis there. We don't explicitly say both courts will be lined with both, or we don't get really detailed in this. there will still be tennis and there will still be pickleball there.
The facility in general will allow for both.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I guess I would just say that I understand Jen's point, and that makes sense with me, but I can understand why you'd feel some discomfort with it. We could, if folks feel concerned about it, we could talk to Mark Purple and try to get a quick legal opinion on this, to make sure we're not, going against the wishes of town meeting if we're, just as an idea.
Jen, when are they looking at the courts? Has it been scheduled yet?
I believe they might have started just cleaning up the courts this week. So it would be a matter of, they might have been down there to start taking it down to be able to build it back up and clean them up this week. But I haven't heard. So they were scheduled to start some work, but that's why we were just kind of hoping to get ahead of what are we lining these courts with and what are we installing before they get too far down this path.
Betsy, when's our next meeting?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, our next meeting, I don't believe we have scheduled that yet. Hold on. Hold on. We don't have another meeting scheduled.
Okay.
Yep.
So, I mean, yeah, we could reach out to town or to Mark Purple, try to get an answer, and then it sounds like we'd have to have another meeting pretty quick if we only had that one thing on the agenda, if everyone could attend. If people are comfortable with that, or we could just vote on it if everyone else thinks that, if I'm in the minority here, and just go forward with it. So I'm open to suggestions.
I believe our next meeting will have to be in person. We can't do virtual anymore after the 15th of this month.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Well, unless they sign, I heard that they are moving to possibly extend this.
Okay.
And the last time they waited till the last minute to do it. I think it was Sam Stivers, or no, it was at the planning board meeting. They said that there was some motion to start moving forward with that. So what is everyone comfortable with? I know, Ann, if we start meeting in person, I think you're out, right?
Not necessarily that I'm out. It depends on the specific day and stuff.
Okay,
I could possibly do in person.
okay. Well, is there a motion to go forward with just pickleball on one court, or do we want to ask Mark Purple?
I'm comfortable, making the motion. I just don't want to force the issue on anybody else. But I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
To allow, or
Yeah, to allow one of the courts to be striped exclusively for pickleball with permanent posts installed, and the other court, location where the skate park currently is, to be rehabilitated to be a tennis court.
okay.
Or
The only
was,
thing-
or was it vice versa?
Oh, did I get that wrong, Jen?
Is the skate park
Well,
going to be pickleball?
We can, what if we make the motion to say that there will be one half will be tennis and one half will be pickleball? And then we can let the contractors do what they think is best.
Can we not have to say one court?
Yeah. So a motion to allow the Mooney Field Court complex to contain one permanently lined tennis court and 1 permanently lined pickleball court. The exact courts to be designated by the contractor and recreation, in accordance with what gives us the best budget.
Jen, you
Um,
second that?
So I will just one tiny thing, so we have our details. So the pickleball, I think we could fit up to 4 courts, 4 pickleball courts. So maybe if we say instead of changing 1 pickleball up to 4 pickleball courts. And then I'll second that.
Got that, Betsy? Okay, just for discussion, the only thing is like that kind of messes with the whole MOU that we already got signed. So we're gonna have to adjust that because I think the MOU said that they're both courts, we're gonna have both pickleball and tennis. So
Did he actually sign it or?
I think so.
Okay, I didn't know that. I knew he like Tim had questioned it. I didn't know if he actually signed it.
Freddie or Betsy, do you know if he signed it? Did you see?
I don't have a copy of it, signed copy.
Okay. Well, we just have to adjust that. Okay. So I'll take the vote as I see everyone on my screen. Ann,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
and I'm gonna say no. That's okay. All right. So go forward with that one. So then the next item was an update on the Colander field. Jen?
Yes. Did folks get a chance to read the email from Tim?
When did that go on? Today?
This afternoon,
Mm,
2:30.
I did not see that.
I didn't see that.
I didn't see it.
Oh,
don't see it.
okay. I thought he like BCC'd everyone, so. Okay, so I can. Probably best if I like half read you this note. I'll also forward it to you guys. So they officially began work on Colander Field on Friday, July 8th. So there was a very long delay along with all other construction projects, like getting like supply chain issues and stuff like that. But we ended up getting all the materials delivered to the field with all the proper sizing and everything that we needed. And to bid. So we had no extra fees in like the materials. Our contractor started to dig. We're out the drainage swales. So that was the problem with the field, right? All of the analysis and studies done showing that the swales were grown in and needed to be cleaned up. So they started digging those all out around the field, as well as the locations where we are going to be putting in new drainage pipes to move the water out and away from the fields. So there was a lot of vegetation, overgrowth, like small trees, like everything that they're pulling out of this here to clear the way. So while they're in there digging, at the bottom of the hill, like where the main swale is, where honestly a lot of the conversation was around this project for the last couple of years, they actually discovered 2 dry wells that had already been installed. No one knew they were there. They were not on any plans, like complete surprise to everyone in town, including the contractors. It never showed up on any schematics that was ever given to the town about regarding what was actually built by this contractor when they put in the development. So, and this is where like I'm sharing what I was told. I don't know all the engineering background with this, but I'll share as much as I was told and know. So these, they installed these like dry wells in the intent to have the water. There was actually another in the ground, another pipe going up the hill as well. So the pipe was supposed to bring the water down the hill horizontally across into these dry wells. And what they discovered is like all the horizontal pipes were like completely like horizontal. There was no pitch in them. So water, what they think was happening is that water was piling up in there and going nowhere. So this entire drainage system that was installed, the opinion of the current contractors and our current architect is that it was installed wrong, that they just did it wrong and it was never going to work. So what it did was build up, and that's why it basically, because those pipes were horizontal, the water filled up the pipes, backed up the hill in the pipe, and then water wasn't actually going down. It was coming out over the top and rolling down the side, which is what everyone was witnessing when you go there and see the overflow of water. So we have confirmed with our architect and the contractors that the current plan that they have to address this will completely solve the problem and it will work. So they're moving forward with removing those dry wells and in basically building out the plan to specs of what we've been told and what we've gone through. Like if you remember all those checkpoints with the Board of Selectmen to ensure that this project could actually go through and actually work. So we are sticking to our plan despite what we found in the ground when we opened it up. And so one fact they told us when they opened up these wells, they were 75% full of water like today. We've had no rainfall in the last couple of weeks or nothing significant. So we're not exactly sure like how long this has been there or how effective this is. But if it's that full with little to no rain, it's just all clogged up and not actually doing what it was designed to do. So like, as you can imagine, like this was very unexpected and frustrating. There are, and I mean, like, I feel like most of the times when rec opens up for a project, we keep finding stuff that wasn't documented, wasn't on any schematics anywhere. We didn't expect it. So there is additional work to basically get rid of what was there so we can actually install the correct drainage. They are actively working on a new quote for us for this work, but we are being told that even with this extra work, we still should come in within budget of what we've appropriated at town meeting. So Tim was confident that like this shouldn't be an ask for more money, but just letting everyone know that like we came in with a really low quote for this. It's not going to be that low because of this extra labor and work that they need to break up and get rid of what was there that we didn't know was there.
So you're saying within the contingency, it's still good work, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yeah. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but if we recall, like this project did come in way under the original estimate. The quote did. So yes, we're expecting it to definitely stay within like the initial price and contingency. And as soon as we have a quote, I mean, like this was just discovered in the last like 24 hours or so. As soon as we have a quote from the contractor, like Tim will pass it along so everyone can see where we're at and what we expect the increased costs to be. Let's see, they're going to work through the appropriate change orders with all the like Mass General Law because we need to do that now that we're changing this bid and adding work to it. So yeah, so that's where we are like 3 days into work.
Okay. I thought you were going to say you could leverage the existing dry wells and it's going to cut the projects in half. But
unfortunately, no. So like if it would have been installed correctly the first time, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation. So that's what they discovered is like, you know, that I guess like the pitches weren't there. Like there was no way mathematically this was going to work. So there was definitely a mistake made when it was installed. But also given that it was like the town didn't even know it was there, most likely means, right, it was installed without us being involved. So we had no input or no way to even check this or inspect it because we did not know it existed. So.
any questions from the committee?
Do we know how long ago that was installed?
I do not know. I used to know when that development when Carriage Lane was put in, but I don't remember the date.
I
It
think
was in the early
it's-
2000s.
I was
Yep.
gonna say 08, but I'm not positive.
Okay, all right, so it's quite a while ago, and it was the early
Yes.
2000s. Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Thanks for the update, Jen. Appreciate it.
Yep, no problem.
Next item is discussion on process for closing out projects. So, there's been, I think you guys know, we've gotten some notice from some applicants in the past that say, hey, okay, this project is done, and then we get a reminder, or we get an email like a month later or so, like, oh, here's one more bill, things like that. So Freddie and I were working on a draft of, Freddie, you sent out that draft letter, right, to everyone?
Yep.
I did. There's actually two documents because one is for the project proponent. And then after that is settled and it's closed out, if there's any funds, when we take the vote, when the CPC members take the vote to return money back to, if there's remaining budget, to move it back into accounts. It seemed having a document, that goes with the application and, the warrant article, complete package saying this is officially closed out. And there was no money left, or this is what you did with the money, that it went back to the right account. And if you look at it, I added the language in compliance with best practices by the Community Preservation Coalition. Because sometimes when you take money out of lots of different accounts, I'd had prior conversations with Stuart that, as depending on the magnitude of it, you don't have to put it all back at a percentage of, if there's $100 left, you don't have to put 2% in this account and 20% in that. So it's just a checking in that way. And of course, the committee always gets to decide what they want to do. Sometimes you actually take it out of accounts that are no longer in existence, like when we have a I just went blank, I'm sorry, but the annual account that you put the money you hold for the general fund, at the end of the year, that goes away. So it's not in existence anymore. Becomes the general fund. And then you also have the different buckets for the reserves. So you want to do as close as possible, but you don't have to go crazy and, use your best judgment and the coalition's recommendations. But that's just a draft for you guys to look over. There's nothing to be signed right now, so. And the other one is to give to the project proponent, saying this is the last bill. They're acknowledging that the project is done. For the payment of the bill, but that there's also everything's been complied with. And I think the CPC wants to make sure, looking at MOUs moving forward.
Yeah, so I saw this as a way to just tie it off and make it clear that, okay, this is the last one, we're done. And like Freddie said, put it in the file. And we're giving them notice as well that if there's anything left, it's gonna come back and it's not gonna linger out there. Is everyone comfortable with that?
And
Yes.
the goal is also to have a packet, the file in a packet, so that when we're reviewing an old project, say, we're not looking back and having to go through minutes. What did you do? It will all be documented by date when you took the vote, that everyone was in agreement, so things don't come back. And not that anything has that I can think of, but as we have more and more projects behind that have been funded, the opportunity, and you see us going through applications and keeping everything organized, I think would be beneficial.
Great.
Do you want to look at the language there? Sometimes Mark Murphy has recommendations.
Yeah, I think we can keep it on again. We can tweak it a little bit and when send it to Mark, see if he has any recommendations for it.
Yeah.
I couldn't be here tonight due to the passing of a good friend. But I don't think there's a rush on this to be done tonight. So we can tweak that. But wanted everyone to be aware that's what we're working on. All right. So the next item, updates on open projects. So there's a couple open projects. One was the Flag School, where I think if everyone remembers, they were doing the assessment of what the paint colors were and everything that the MOU had, that John Parent had to be a sign off on what they were doing and be aware of it, because technically it's still a town building, even though they lease it. And then there was, we were waiting for a final report. So I sent an email to the entire historical commission asking, right, that's the commission, no.
Society.
Asking, if someone could attend. I sent it late last week. Sally Waters did reply. She said that she had been out of town, but she's gonna follow up on the items and get them wrapped up so we could tie this one off with a nice bow. Like getting John to approve it, updating the report that it's final, and getting a copy of the invoice sent over. So that's the update on that one. As far as the flag itself and the final payments on the curator who was going through all this stuff, still that's in town council's hand and the selectmen. So I'm kind of out of that. We still haven't made any payments, but it sounds like they're making some progress with Michael and what's going to happen with that. See other items. I did get a letter. I'm going to share again. So from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, from Lisa Braccio, who's the chair. It's an updated letter. As you recall, Ben and I met with the Affordable Housing Trust Committee at one point, or no, Shopsy, asking, for specifics on what they were going to do with the money. So I feel this kind of addresses what they were looking for. So these funds are earmarked per Community Preservation Act for the purchase, construction, and facilitation of affordable housing in the town of Southborough through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, with the completed strategic plan and the new requirements for the MBTA communities having these funds readily available for priorities of purchasing available land, potential purchase of a home, or the availability to partner with a housing organization would expedite the process to advance the opportunity for much needed affordable housing. So my thought was this kind of met the need that we were looking for. And I can't see you because of the limited space on my screen. So I don't know if you're nodding or.
I am. We had hoped, I think, for perhaps a shade more detail in the plan, but in the interest of just getting things moving, it sounds like the Affordable Housing Trust has. I think one stumbling block was they hadn't been very active for a while, and it sounds like they've become active and are moving in the right direction. And I feel like we can help them with that. So
yeah.
So I see
So
Freddie has her hand up. I see.
yeah, Freddie.
Hi. So I spent some time today, and I had sent most of these documents earlier about strong, very strong recommendation that you have a grant agreement with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund before you move the money. And I think when I was going through the documents, and I'm sorry because I found something and I meant to save it and now I can't find it right now and I need to go back. But unlike what I had previously thought, that this money can go to any type of affordable housing creation or purchasing of land or rehabilitation, it actually without going to town meeting. That's not actually the case. There's limitations on it, and I don't know that anyone is aware of it. I'm going to have to go back and try to read through it and find it again. So one of the things is that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund can act quickly, but only in certain circumstances can they act quickly without going to town meeting. And I don't think that's understood because I didn't know it before. I just saw it today. And I think it would be worthwhile to investigate. There's a CPA circuit rider specifically. I can talk with her, or somebody from this committee can, you can charge me to do that and just get the information. And also look at the grant requirements. And I know this is money that was before that legislation was written, but that grant requirement will make it absolutely clear why, the situation we're in today, why those grant recommendations are in place. And you would have to vote to have town council look at it, to create your own. It doesn't have to take months, but I think I would urge you to do a little more investigation to what's required. Because not only that, the CPC is required to file the forms that they send you in compliance to the Department of Revenue. This is all tax money. And even though the CPC is not, allocating the money, they have to report back to you. And if they don't report correctly, or we're not all in agreement on what has to be reported, that's on the CPC, because it's your obligation to have those forms properly filled out. And that's a, Department of Revenue issue. So if you look at the documents I sent you, and I'll try to find the language on which things you have to go back to town meeting, which is a pretty different interpretation than I'd ever heard before. And I can't find it, so I can't say exactly what it was, but it was something like, I don't know that you can buy land to build without going to town meeting. I could be misunderstood, I just saw it for a quick second and I have to go back, but I think it's serious enough that it would serve you well to at least get the documents and look at them. Talk to Mark, have your chair talk to Mark Purple and town council to see, what that, and it doesn't mean you can't vote to, pass the money on pending an approved grant agreement. That was just my recommendation, which is just a recommendation.
Yeah, so we could do the grant agreement way, or the other thing that before Freddie found that out, I was thinking of just sending to them all the requirements of the CPC for affordable housing, to say this is what you have to follow, like reporting back to us and everything else. I kind of feel like, and this is probably a bit on me too, but like we do get to a point where, like we originally said, look, just tell us what the plan is, and now we're going to come back and say, oh, now I need a grant agreement, and it's got to go through town council and everything else. So I respect what Freddie says. I think if it was something that we could draft up, just simply say, hey, the grant agreement is you're going to follow this, and here's all the requirements that for the CPC using the funds for affordable housing, and that's it. It should be a no-brainer. But I think we've gone back and forth with them enough that we should at least let them know, yes, we're going to move forward and make progress on this, and they're going to have the funds available, because they have done what we originally asked them to do, was give us the plan of what they're going to use it for. So
Is that plan more than just this email? Like, is there, like, as there is a completed strategic plan, is there like a plan somewhere that we could actually see? Or
yeah, I haven't seen it. It sounds
Okay.
like there is one. So they have been meeting more, from my understanding. So, I mean, my big thing was like one of the things that is available is that you could use the funds to support someone in a rental, right? Which would be someone's in a house, or a rental, then they could use the Affordable Housing Trust Fund money to pay the rent for someone so they could stay in town. Is that what they're thinking of doing? Is it, what is it? There's a lot out there. And I think this narrows it down to, they're looking for, building affordable housing, specifically within the MBTA communities, is what they're targeting. So
I think Freddie had a great idea, which was we could vote to transfer the funds pending the receipt of a properly executed grant agreement. And that allows us to do what you're talking about, Andrew, is to continue, forward progress on this while still making sure we fulfill our responsibilities here as far as oversight and reporting. And we don't look like we're being, we're not being obstructionist. We want to just make sure we get this right, but just to show we're a willing partner here. We're moving things forward as quickly as we can. And it sounds like speaking with the circuit rider would be a fabulous idea. This is somebody who will, know this stuff off the top of their head and can just walk us through the process, tell us exactly what we need, and we can bring that to Affordable Housing Trust in Shopsy.
You're not precluded from scheduling another just very short meeting focused on that alone in August, right? You don't have to wait till, I'm just saying if it's important and it could be done quickly.
So Freddie, can you list out the main bullets? I mean, not tonight, and send it out to everyone, like what you said, like if you can't purchase property or whatever it is, the key points, such as the reporting that they have to do, because I don't want to then have the circuit rider and then oh, here's one other thing. We got to just get it all down and boom, be done.
And I don't want to make this sound more difficult. If you read the the recommended grant agreement, it's a template, you just fill it in. If you read what is recommended that CPC, the committee members do, working with the Affordable Housing Trust Funds, it raises all kinds of issues that this committee in my history has never discussed. So it seems like there are some, you don't want to make, I understand you want to make it as simple and easy as possible, but if you look at some of the things, they're not putting that in there because there haven't been reasons to put it in there. How's that? And they're not recommending strongly that committees have them in numerous places on their website because they're not strongly urging you to have it. So that's just when I started reading through it. At first, I was a little bit like, yeah, we kind of know all this. But then when you start actually reading what what is in that, it raises some other issues of what you want to be sure is going on. So you can put a few simple things that complies with the CPA, but the difference is there may be some limitations that I could find out on how CPA money can be used within the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, different than what we thought. So I could just pull those issues out. It's going to take some research. Did you see the document I sent? I'd sent it before. It's pretty comprehensive. And if you don't want to go that comprehensive, it's all written out for you. The question is, what would you take out?
Well, I mean, what I was suggesting is we just say, okay, here are the funds and you need to follow these guidelines, and then that's it. And we give them all the information that they have to follow. I mean, the grant agreement, I feel like if we, what power does that give us other than, we're informing you this is what you have to do. Um,
You wouldn't be in a situation where you have funds that were authorized in 2008 and it's 2022, and there hasn't been a meeting to discuss a project specific to use those funds. That's what is in the grant. I know that sounds a little, it's not like the CPC has been negligent in this.
I understand.
Not like the CPC hasn't tried over and over again to utilize this funding or find a way or have forums to bring in the experts. I mean, we had the circuit rider come in. We had her Habitat for Humanity come in. We tried to find.
Yeah, that's not the issue. I'm just trying to figure out how we can, one, give them the money and let them understand this is what you have to follow. And other than just giving them all the documentation to say, this is what you need to follow when you're taking these funds to use it. I mean, the grant agreement, yeah, it's another thing that I see is going to be a lot of paper to get through and lawyer, town council filling out and everything. But in the end, it's just the same thing. You need to follow what the statute says, right? So I'm kind of personally at the point, like, let's give them the money and say, here are the rules that go with it, and you guys need to follow them. And it's on you at this point.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
I'm uncertain. Can we disperse the money without a grant agreement in place?
Yes.
Oh, we can. Okay. I was under the impression that we simply couldn't do that.
No, it was recommended that we do it. from
Okay.
The coalition and everything, but again, it's the same thing. I see that it's gonna be like months, probably, going back and forth with town council, figuring out he's gonna tweak things, take things out, when if we just say, here you go, here are all the rules that go with it, we agree that, we've got a plan in place, that's what we wanted, and here are the rules, the updated rules that you need to follow.
So your recommendation would be that I go through all this documentation and see what specific rules there are.
No,
Bullet point.
I mean, that was one thing, but just give them the whole thing.
I think your first point with some bullet points is maybe better because there's stuff in there. It's easy to miss when you have that level of depth of information, I think.
Well, we can bullet some high level ones that, like the ones that jumped out to you, but also say you should read the entire statute so you know how it can be used. But, here are some key things that you need to keep in mind that how you can and can't use this money from the CPC standpoint.
From the CPA, not the committee.
CPA.
It's a state legislation and the Department of Revenue who oversees it. So it's never this committee trying to have oversight. It's trying to comply with the law, which is, it's a little, not you guys saying you have to do this. It's
So Freddie, in order to put such a list together, would you need, it sounds like it would be helpful to speak for the circuit rider on this, somebody with a lot of expertise in the subject matter. Would you need us to authorize you to do that?
I think you can just tell me to do it tonight. I mean, I believe I could have called her on my own, but I think it would be better if you asked me to do it so that the report that I send back to you is in an email. And you could also authorize that I give that to your chair, who then decides to pass it on after you take your vote, so it's not another meeting. I mean, there's a way of, you can make that recommendation if that's the route you want to go. It sounds like that's how your chair would like you to do it. Not have another meeting, correct, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean.
Okay, so it would be, what I can envision is all the documents, I think sending the recommended grant agreement, that these are the things that would be expected to be done, even though we don't have a grant agreement, sending some of the paperwork from Department of Revenue writes, position papers when issues come up. I can put that packet together and just highlight a few key points and send that to Andrew. And then Andrew can pass it on if that's how you choose to not have another meeting. Can't send it to the whole committee and have everyone weigh in, I don't think,
Oh,
you know, unless you want to have a meeting. So I'll let you decide how to do
Well, I
it.
mean, you could send it out and say, here's the final letter that we're
Oh, you
sending.
know what? You can respond back to me.
Yeah,
If you say this is ridiculous or this is marvelous or I didn't know that. How about if I do that, send it out, you can respond back just to me. And then Andrew can move forward.
yeah, we have to be very careful not to reply all.
correct.
There will be no replying all on an email I send out with this. I'll blind CC you and have a
Perfect.
ruler.
Does that
Sounds
work?
reasonable.
Is that in line with what you want to do, Andrew?
That works for me, but if others feel differently, it's up to everyone else.
Sounds reasonable.
I have one question. So one of the things that was like listed in that grant agreement that Freddie sent around was like a time period on this. So are we turning this money over to sit in their accounts for like the next 6-7 years and not be spent? Or do we want to put a time period on this saying like, okay, we'll turn the funds over to you, but you need to take action in the next 3 years. Otherwise it comes back to CPC? Or like, I guess I'm just worried that like the way these votes were taken years ago is it ties up a bunch of funding, right? That's not, has no end date. So like this grant agreement, actually, like one of the first things it did is I think it said like, if it's not used within the 3 years, like it's returned.
That was an
So
eye
if
opener.
they're really active and they're going to be doing something great, but I'd be worried about it going off and then potentially being forgotten about, that it's sitting over there. Without it being like an active account that we're constantly looking at.
Well, I mean, we do get a report on the accounts. Oh, well, no, that would go over. So
Yeah, we'd lose it. So it'd go into their account.
Also look in the grant agreement, they recommend they come back and talk to the CPC, very similar to our MOU, like every 6 months, give an update. Where are you standing? And then on top of that, for the CP3, which depending on the year and how many projects we have can be, you know, you can lose sleep over that one because it's Department of Revenue. And if you don't get it in right, there goes your state match. So it doesn't go away, it's just, it can be delayed. So, you know, you really, so if somebody's not supplying you with the documentation you need to make that deadline, you know, then you could have a situation where you don't get it, the state match in the time frame you're expecting it. Is one thing that can happen. So why don't well, if there's anything else here, I'll do what we just said. And then if there are things in there that you've seen, like, I don't know about the timeline. I don't know how that works with not having a grant agreement.
well, I mean, they're gonna have to report back so we can put on the CP3 how they spent the money, right? So we'll at least have visibility from that standpoint. If they've used the money, and if they haven't used any of the money, I think it gives a good argument. Why do you need more if they ask for more in the future, right? But I know this money's been sitting around since 2008. Because the same thing, we always ask for what the plan was to how they're going to use the money. Now at least they have a plan, they want to do something. I think it's time to give them the money and see if they're going to do anything.
So
Again,
one of the concerns,
we put guidelines on it again, it's like, okay, you know, I can feel their frustration, like, okay, well, what if then in 3 years, nothing comes up, the properties don't come up or anything, they didn't do anything, we're gonna take all the money back and we're gonna run through this whole hoopla again?
So, but for this money here, I guess like it's already earmarked for them. It doesn't have, in theory, it doesn't have to go back to town meeting. It's sitting in account waiting for them. Would they really move so fast that there was no way for us to give them the money? to do whatever they need to do. I guess that's the part that I'm confused. Like, why is it so important this money sits in their account versus ours?
It's a simple vote of the CPC to transfer it over. 48 hours to transfer it over, basically. Post a meeting and then sign the form.
I mean, Ann probably knows from the way the real estate market is now, like if something comes up, it's gone over the weekend, if it's a good piece of property. So.
In real estate, you have to act extremely
Yeah.
fast, like hours, not days.
So I guess like, so then when we move this money over, we won't know till after the fact what they've done with it, and we hope that they do the right thing with it. That's what we're basically giving up with this.
Yeah, but I mean, that's,
That was the original intent.
yeah,
And there was great trust, and
Okay.
we passed money through to them for 3 years before this other money just sat there. The problem with some of this other money sitting there, about $100,000 of it isn't affordable, earmarked for affordable housing. It came out of the general unreserved. The
Gotcha.
CPC was giving above and beyond, which was the right thing to do if it's going to be used, but
And I think, Jen, to your point, I think the intent is that the Affordable Housing Trust is there. It exists to provide that oversight that you're talking about once it leaves our hands. Now, Affordable Housing Trust did go a decade or so without meeting, but we do see a big flurry of activity, and it looks like, this is a serious thing, and we have every reason to believe that they're going to follow through on it. And I think, I don't know how well that addresses your concern, but I think that was the original intent, the Affordable Housing Trust. Once we release the money, they provide the oversight.
And on another note, just to be aware, this 9-member committee has 2 designated seats to represent affordable housing positions. Maybe we could reach out to them to, send someone again.
yeah.
We haven't had someone from the affordable, the housing authority, and I don't know how many years, and Shopsy's been a little while. And I say that knowing that the Open Space Commission hasn't, and we're working on that ourselves, but there's 2 seats not filled that represent housing on this committee. So maybe we reach out to the selectmen asking if they can help with that.
Okay,
Would help with the communication line, I would think.
Yeah.
so is there a motion that we transfer the community preservation and affordable housing funds of $196,276.62 to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund with a document of bulleted items of key items that they need to follow per the CPA Act, and the documentation of how they can use the funds to comply with the CPA Act.
I'll make that motion as Andrew said, and just add to it, also accompanied by a copy of the model grant agreement.
Okay. Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? I'll go as I see you on my screen. Jen,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
and Andrew is a yes. All right.
I have one question on that topic, Andrew.
Yeah.
Could we just ask, reply back to Lisa and ask if they could share that strategic plan? Like they say it's completed, but if they could like share it so we could actually see it, that would be nice, rather than potentially digging through all their meeting minutes to find it.
Yeah, no, I'll email her back tonight, let her know that we voted to move this, but we'd like to see the strategic plan, and can she send it over?
Awesome, thank you.
Yep. Let's see. So I talked about the South or the Flag School. Let me see. Other open projects that I had updates for, I think that was it. Freddie, keep me honest, were there any other open projects?
You know, let me find my agenda. I had written some notes. It was the updates on open projects. It was historical and the housing fund for right now.
Yeah.
So that was it.
Good. So the next one, special town meeting for the fall. So the rumor is there's gonna be a fall special town meeting. So the only thing I know of as a possible project for that could be for open space recreation type walking around behind the library, the flower garden, or not flower garden, but what is it, the area for the bees and everything, right, Freddie?
Yeah, so this has been, it was supposed to come for a spring town meeting, but we held off because there's some uncertainty about how the new road relocation and park for the St. Mark's Road will impact the back end of the library, because there's been, some of it's handicapped access and handicap parking, and there could end up being a sidewalk right where we were planning to do some of this habitat restoration work. So the selectmen just expanded the committee, and I'm now sitting on it as a rep from the Open Space Commission, and Kevin Miller from Historical's on it. So they're looking at this with new eyes. The charge was expanded from before. And I don't know if you've heard, there's also a historical archaeological dig going on that they won't really have the results until September. So depending on how that committee's work goes, I still want, because it's a different parcel than the back of the library, but you can see that they're, one impacts the other. So we'd still like to move forward with the library project if it's not going to be somehow impacted by the new park. And by being on the committee, I'll have a better idea to be able to update you in time to have a warrant article. If it seems, it was mostly, there's some trees there with invasives, and taking those out and replanting. And we've been working on that for over a year now. So I just wanted to keep that in the queue, because typically for special town meeting, the committee does not open up applications, but we had this application ready to go and pulled it based on some very sound advice that it would be better to wait until the fall.
Yeah, and when Freddie and I were talking about it, it sounds like that the original grant from the state had some funds in it for some type of recreational piece. And there, we don't have clarity on how much money that is and where that money currently is. So from my standpoint, that's like the first thing. Like, okay, if money was already granted to this, then where is it? What's it been used for, or what's it going to be used for the recreation or trails or whatever, before we then look at funding anything for this. That was, and Freddie was on board with that. So
yeah, I might have confused the matter a little bit by talking about that project, because the Open Space Preservation Commission project was unique and separate from that. The library grounds are a different property, and before anyone knew anything about this other park back there, we had already started in 2019 working on this pollinator habitat. And it was just the two sort of, we had a phase 1, and then the phase 2 was coming in right when this other park adjacent to it came up. So I don't know what's going to happen at the St. Mark's Park, but some of the things that came up would impact the land we were doing the restoration work on for the library, potentially. So our project, I'm trying to be clear, is on the library grounds, and an extension of the pollinator preservation habitat we already have on the library. The other project's totally separate, and I mentioned it to Andrew because we just don't know. But does not relate to the project already in the queue that we've talked about a bunch of times. You actually help fund getting some in early admin survey work done there. Do you recall that, to help us get the application ready?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
There's very high water table there, and we had to know if we could do what we're trying to do. There may be a stream underneath the soil, not that far down.
Yep.
So I just want to keep that in the queue, and that was it. Didn't mean to confuse things with the other park, but the other park is why I don't have a project in front of you right now. How's that?
Thank you. Any other questions on fall special town meeting? All right, consultant update. Freddie, you got anything else?
I did, but I have to check back again. It wasn't, I thought I had an update, but I need to get more information.
Okay.
I don't want to give half a story.
So the next one is a consultant's contract extension through the summer. Apparently, there are new contracts that need to be done because we have a new town council. They're very, Betsy's smiling because I sent it over to her today. It's 10 pages, believe it or not, for, I'm not trying to minimize what Betsy does. She does a lot, but I think it boils down to like 8 bullets. So the fact that we have 10 pages of legal documents and it's mind-boggling to me, but anyway, so the contract I put forth that we voted before was going to go through, I think September 31st is what I put on it, right, Betsy? And then after that, we'd have to vote again for a whole year to do it again. But hopefully the next one would be for multiple years, and I just wanted to give you guys an update on that one. And I'll have to do the same with Freddie. Any questions on that one?
So my understanding is that, and I didn't know about Betsy's 10-page contract, but I believe it was because at the end of the fiscal year, they want a new one done. Was that mentioned at all?
No, that wasn't mentioned.
So maybe I misunderstood, but there was an email that said from Carla that you have to extend my contract through the summer. Or
Okay.
else. So I don't know if they're going to want a 10-pager, but I think and they want to see typically they want to see the vote, and you have to give them the minutes that you took a vote. And I think it could just be to extend the existing contract for me. I don't have a 10-page contract. Maybe I will shortly, but I think you need to have that vote and whatever vote for Betsy's. And then
Well, we already voted on Betsy's like the last meeting, so that's all set.
that was through September 31st, because Carla said she wanted.
Yeah, I was trying to do it for 3 years, but they won't do it for 3 years. So,
Okay. Well-
so you can do a vote for, make a motion, if someone can make a motion that we extend Freddie's contract as is through September 31st of 2022.
So moved.
Is there a second? David raises his hand. I think he was on mute, but
Second.
right. Any discussion? Right, around as I see everyone. Jen,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Okay, and same with, just to be sure, we'll do it for Betsy too. We extend her contract through to September 31st as,
Or the 30th.
oh, 30th, as written, sorry.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Any discussion? All right, as Jen,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Nan?
Yes.
And Andrew is a yes on both. All right. Chairman's report. I think I covered everything in the other projects. Oh, no, there's one other piece. So I think I mentioned it before. I know, I think it was Ann's husband I talked to about raising the CPC surcharge for the town. Now, there seems to be, there's anticipation for some big items coming through for the schools, such as new fields, AstroTurf. You can't necessarily do the AstroTurf itself, but you can do some of the design work and other things. So it's a little bit, which comes first, chicken or the egg? Do we wait for the project and then reach out to everyone and say, hey, this is what we gotta increase the surcharge? Or do we increase the surcharge, try to get more match now to build up so that we can fund a bigger project? With these times and everything, I don't know if there's ever a good time to start reaching out to everyone and say, hey, we want to look for additional funds to come out and people to pay to help with CPC and increase the surcharge across their annual bill. But wanted to discuss it with everyone because it would be, Freddie was the only one who originally did the campaign to get this, the 1%. And I think Freddie, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys considered a higher percentage, but went with the 1 because that's what you eventually thought would pass and did pass.
I advocated strongly the whole time for 3%, but I was one of 4.
Yeah.
And this was a citizens petition. It had no town entity with us. We just went off and did it ourselves, but they didn't think it would pass at 3%, so we went for 1. And we've done it. Look at what's been accomplished with the 1%.
Yeah.
I have a
So-
question for you, Andrew.
Yep.
Are they asking the CPC to run with it? And why is that traditionally who does, or is it the person who's got the big project that's going to do the legwork? My memory, well, it was different because we had to do a citizens petition. It was a ballot question. We had to get like 10% of the citizens of the town, registered voters, to sign petitions in February when it was cold in February, unlike today. But
Well, I think it
who
would be-
traditionally does it?
I don't know because I haven't done it, but I would anticipate it would be a joint effort, partnering with probably the schools committee and any other groups that think that they could use additional funds to help promote any of the areas that the CPC supports.
Would
So-
you like to charge me to find out like what other towns have done?
Yeah, that'd be great.
into
I
it.
mean, so we can put a plan together on how to execute
First, you
this.
have to decide you want to do it, but if you do, then you can ask me to go look into it.
Is everyone on board with pursuing this and see what it would take?
Mhm.
I see a lot of head nods. David, are you on board?
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
All right. So,
No charge?
buddy, if you can reach out to either other towns or the coalition and see what they say, how towns have most been successful
Oh.
up the surcharge, that'd be great. And then we can discuss it at the next meeting, and we'll make that a standing item on our meeting. Personally, I think, trying to get it on a special town fall meeting would be unrealistic. I think we'd have to shoot for a regular town meeting. And, special town fall meeting, they typically open it and shut it. They try to limit it to just the select items that they have, but they have to open it across the board. I could see this being a big discussion item. I just don't know if we'd be ready for a fall town meeting. So,
There's a lot of details that go into it. Like typically what we had done was, you have to figure out how much will the increase cost the typical home, and projections that way and how much you're going to bring in, and, where you don't want to just be collecting money to collect money in this fiscal atmosphere. I think if you do have some popular projects, that would help.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
also the fact you're bonded is a bonus, because one of the problems with opening up, going for more, when you put the warrant on the floor, they can also vote to lower it to less. They can't zero it out without going to a ballot question. You have to get rid of it, you have to do the same way that you passed it. And because we went the hard way, to get rid of it, you have to do the same thing. You can't just go to town meeting, but you can lower it to like 0.25% or something.
But if we were to try to up it, would it have to go to the ballot too, or we could just
No.
do town meeting? Okay.
So you could up it, but what I'm saying, having bonds out there is better, because if you don't have enough money to pay the bond, the town still has to pay them, and it would have to come off your tax bill without getting the state match. So if you were going to do it, I think if you have a popular project that people would support funding, and we don't have enough funds to do it without a raise, an increase, and if, with the bonding, it gives you that protection that you don't have somebody stand up at town meeting and say, hey, let's get rid of it. And, I always worry about getting surprised by a town meeting vote, because, who knows what happens there sometimes.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so Freddie, if you can look into that, everyone was in agreement with it, so that'd be great. And the only other thing I think we have is next couple of meetings, so the
Do we have to do the minutes?
When the CPC, when is the application due? You want to plan it after that to review the application, right?
yeah, unless we need, we were talking about having one in August.
That was when I was suggesting you have if you were going to have a grant agreement, you could do that.
Okay.
Was there another reason for the recreation, but you took care of that?
Yeah. Okay. So Betsy, do you recall what on the application when they were due?
Was it August? September, wait, no, I don't. Oh, hold on, I can find it.
Okay. In the meantime, we'll do the minutes. So are there any questions on the minutes? Is there a motion for the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Jen? Accept the meeting minutes as written?
Oh, yes. Yep. Sorry.
Jen? Are you on mute?
Yes, I'm on mute. I said yes like 8 times. Sorry.
David?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
And Andrew is a yes. Okay.
The deadline, please submit the attached application by July 30th. Oh, no, that's last year. Sorry. Oh, why? This is the old one. Okay, this has to be it. Oh, August 26, 2022.
August 26th. Okay. So let's see. Ben, the 27th, September 1st is the next.
When's Labor Day? You want to do it after that? I'm pretty sure.
Guessing Labor Day is the third.
Fifth. It's fifth.
Yep.
So the 15th, September 15th. The Thursday.
I can do that.
I've got Concom that night.
All right. Well, how about September 14th, which is a Wednesday?
Do
Um,
that.
Wednesdays don't work for me in person.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
How about Tuesday the 13th?
Mm, I could do that.
So the 13th, you said?
Yep.
I can do
Yes.
that.
I can do it too. Yep, works.
Is Jen on mute again?
No, I'm not. I can make it work. Rec usually does that second Tuesday, but I don't think we've technically scheduled it, so you guys win first.
All right. So let's do that. And then, so then after that. We'll
Can I
say,
jump in? Tuesdays, I'm not 100% sure, but if you're scheduling out, I may not be able to come on Tuesdays. I'm not sure. Although I'm not a member, so, you know.
well, you're pretty important. Well, let's tentatively hold that for now, and but Freddie, you tell us if you can't make it as we get closer.
It has to do with bells, which I didn't do for COVID for years, so
Is that
I'm hoping to be ringing my bells again.
back on?
It's been on. I didn't go for it was stopped for like a year, and then this whole last year, it broke my heart, but I just didn't feel like I could go, even though a lot of them were playing. I did play once with a friend's service, but yeah. So it seems like the good news is maybe COVID's opening up more and more all the time, right?
Well, we'll pencil the 12th now, and we'll see if the bells happen on the 12th, or we can adjust.
I can know this week. How's that? And send it out.
Okay. And then, so typically we do the first review then, and then we do that internally, and then have our questions for people to present 2 weeks later. So that would be the end of September. So the 29th, Ben, is that Concom?
It is not. I'm free.
All right, so let's do the 29th if that works for everyone, Thursday.
So I might be out of town. But I there's like 50-50 chance I can make it or not. So
Okay,
let's just do it.
all right. And then after that, then we go into October where they tweak the plan, try to get additional quotes, things like that. So I would anticipate like 3 weeks. So then we're at October 20th.
I can do it.
That works.
Yep, works for me.
All right. And then we'll do another one, say that November 10th.
What's
think-
the tentative date of the town meeting, and would we need to have like a pre-meeting meeting?
Yeah, so usually it's early March, right?
Or for the fall town meeting, I mean.
Oh, yeah. I don't have a date for that. I don't know.
Yeah.
And historically, you wouldn't need a pre-town meeting if you just had one warrant article. There's a potential. It's a possibility. How's that? But it's not like you have the whole budget and all that.
Yeah, we can be flexible on that one. So we said October was the 20th?
20th.
And then how about November 10th?
Mhm.
Can do it.
Okay. And then December 8th.
Works.
Does that work, Ben?
I'm sorry, I'm still getting the other typed in here. December 8th.
Yeah,
I've got Concom on the 8th. Do the 15th or the 1st.
let's do the first because then the 15th is too close to Christmas parties. And
Yep.
so the first, can everyone do the first?
Mhm.
Yep.
Yep.
So that gets us through the end of the year and we can adjust if there is going to be something for special town meeting or if bells happen on the September 13th. Okay,
Thank you for that.
yeah. Anything else? All right, then I guess there's only one more motion needed.
Where's Dick up, John, when you need him?
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, Ann, I'm gonna go with you first.
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
and Andrew is a yes. Thanks, everyone. Betsy, Freddie, thank you again for all your support. Appreciate it.
Thank you both.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night, everyone.
For attending.
Good
Thanks.
night.
Good night.
Night, guys.
Bye.